Hi ladies and gentlemen, Morinure Ivenberg here again. The topic that I'm going to be discussing in this video is going to be the validity on or how credible grimoires are in general. This is more of an expansion and more of a neutral take on this subject, since I already did something similar called the Goetia Evaluated. I did two videos, the Goetia Evaluated Part 1 and the Goetia Evaluated Part 2, in which I discuss what the Goetia is about, and I simply highlight certain key points and topics within the Goetia. But this one is going to be more unanswered or answers to the question, how credible and how accurate are magical grimoires. Most of us as occultists are already familiar with grimoires, what they are: magical workbooks that highlight working with spirits, or that explain on how to work with spirits. And most of them, if all of them, if not most of them at least, have instructions lined out, often elaborate and extensive and difficult more often than not, on how to conjure and summon spirits and related, and other related affairs. Okay, that's basically shortly explain what a magical workbook or a grimoire is. Yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to abstain from this, you need to fast for 20 weeks or something like that. These are just rough examples. That's what a traditional grimoire looks like. In any case, the core of a grimoire has spirits listed that one can work with, or that one can summon by doing the aforementioned or before mentioned. And that, again, that's what we as occultists come to know as grimoires. But the question that you need to ask yourself is, how accurate are these grimoires? These grimoires, a lot of them come from an uncredible or a non-verified source. Okay, if the source isn't verified, if the author, for example, that wrote the grimoire isn't even known, how can you be sure that the information in it is even credible? I mean, for that same matter, I could just write a book tomorrow on a bunch of stupid topics. I can just write my own grimoire and just make up a bunch of spirits that don't even exist with a bunch of fictional attributes, and voila, a grimoire is made. The problem is that a lot of practitioners and a lot of occultists in general out there, they take all of this at face value. Not too many of them ask themselves whether it's really true, and so on. Most of them just work with the spirit. Oh, okay, this spirit specializes in money. They just try to summon said spirit, and then they're wondering why it didn't work, for example, or why something like this failed, and so on. Okay, I'm simply going to bring a couple of points. I'm going to elaborate on a couple of points and bring them to light. Point one, what you need to keep in, and I'm going to list a couple of examples, of course. Let's start off with the Goetia. Point one. Okay, the Goetia lists a bunch of spirits that are more made out to be malevolent and demonic in nature. Hence, the entire world practically, or the entire mainstream occult world, just automatically accepting that these are demons, or automatically labeling them demons, which is such a load of crap, which is completely untrue, of course. If you literally just Google Goetia, all you'll find is the 72 demons of the Goetia. Demon, 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 demon. And it couldn't be more inaccurate if it tried to be, okay? The Goetia, okay, the way that the Goetia is set up in terms of instructions for summoning these spirits is set up to be forceful and hostile. So if these spirits behave malevolently, what did you expect? It's like asking someone something politely and offering something in return, versus coercing that way, coercing information and getting that person information out of someone and getting that person to do things by force, by holding that person at gunpoint, for example. It's like taking someone hostage and forcing that person to do your bidding, otherwise I'll shoot you. That's basically what the Goetia says you should do, which I am so against. So don't expect these spirits to behave malevolently, because any normal person would behave that way if being placed under such duress or stress. Again, I have worked with, let's see, 1, 2, let's just say roughly estimated, I've worked with at least or dealt with 10 spirits from the Goetia, more or less, and with at least 3 or 4 of them I've worked extensively. Examples that just, I have so much to think about, I've got so much on my mind, but just off the top of my head, C3, Belial, I've worked with these guys extensively for a long amount of time, Vasago, you name it. I have, and with not to mention others that I've just researched, okay, Kaim, Asmodeus, Agares, I've got so much, okay, Barbatos, there are so many spirits that I've researched, okay. But yeah, Baal, it just keeps going on and on and on, okay, and I noticed right away that these things were completely untrue, okay. That information listed in the Goetia, for example, is completely untrue. Things like attributes, zodiacal or planetary attributes, even descriptions, for example, a lot of these things aren't even true. A good deal of spirits in the Goetia are more, or at the very least more than a few of them, are pagan gods that were demonized or that were spoken ill of. Baal is an example. Vasago is another example, and it just goes on, okay. Again, this is just an example to highlight the inaccuracy or to denote how inaccurate grimoires can be, and that you shouldn't take it at face value. Another example is the Arbatel grimoire. I've covered, let's see, up to this date, I have written about one Arbatel spirit, I think, which is that I just did a video on. I have others, okay, that I'm going to write on, but the Arbatel never interested me as a grimoire, and yet I have Arbatelian spirits that approach me. That's another example. The Arbatel grimoire lists these spirits as being planetary, and for that same fact, these spirits could be pagan gods and relating to that, okay. Their attributes listed in the Arbatel grimoire as well as their correspondences are inaccurate. Practically every Arbatelian spirit that I've checked upon isn't even remotely what as is stated. Okay, for example, Och is said to be solar within the Arbatel. Nope, he's lunar in reality. It's said that he can specialize in these things. In his case, coincidentally, that's true. But I have another spirit that I'm supposed to write on. Okay, and it's said that he is Martian, which isn't true. Okay, it turns out that he is. It turns out that he's also lunar, just like Och. And the Arbatel says that he specializes in destruction. Not true. He specializes in wealth, money. So you can see, okay, how inaccurate it is, and that one thing that you should absolutely not do is take what grimoires say at face value. Just because a grimoire says, hey, this spirit is from the sun, it's a fallen angel, it specializes in destroying others, doesn't mean that it automatically all of that is true. All of it can be made up for the same matter, okay, or for that same matter can be made up. Again, I'm going to revert back to the Goetia. The Goetia especially grossly over-exaggerates about these spirits, making these spirits out to be divine and almost semi-omnipotent, okay? He knoweth all things, past, present, and future. I mean, any logical person can think to himself, nah, this is a gross over-exaggeration, okay? I don't mean this offensively to any spirit, but they know that. But it's a gross over-exaggeration to say that you know past, present, and future and all of that. No. What in realistic terms, what can be derived from that is that these spirits are clairvoyant to a certain extent, to the point where they can potentially tell you things that you want to know from either the past, the present, or the future at best. But the way that these spirits are made out to be is just like it's just almost like they're semi-omnipotent, like they're Jesus or the Holy Ghost. Nah. Okay, this is just an exaggeration. So my point is simply, in terms of the own question that I laid before you guys, how credible are occult grimoires or magical grimoires? Unfortunately, based on my experience and knowledge, I have to say no. Okay, a big no, N-O. Unfortunately, most occult grimoires are not credible, okay? At the very least, partially uncredible or incredible, and the information listed therein is not true, okay? Of course, it's not black and white, it depends on your perspective, but generally speaking, no, the information listed in grimoires is not true. And how should you then approach a grimoire, okay, or working out of a grimoire? Is to simply not take things at face value, okay? Always approach every working with a good deal of suspicion, and only when, okay, your suspicions have been confirmed, okay, only when, for example, it turns out that a spirit does indeed have the attributes that are listed therein, only then can you, okay, breathe somewhat of a sigh of relief and say, okay, so yes, it is true, okay, what is stated is true. But again, this requires a reliable system, okay? Even if a spirit tells you that he's solar, doesn't mean that he's solar. Spirits are also prone to lying as human beings, but that doesn't mean that they're malevolent, okay? They either have some reason for why they told you that, because they, for example, thought to myself, maybe if I tell him that maybe if I don't tell him the truth, he won't want to work with me or anything like that. And again, for them, their eagerness and to work simply lies within the fact of self-ascension. They want to work as much as possible in order to gain as much experience as possible, okay? It's similar to a freelancer looking for work. You'll be hard-pressed to find a freelancer that will turn down work. Again, for them it's all about growth, okay? Spiritual growth and thereby self-ascendance. The same way that all of us want to make as much money as possible, more or less, to put it that way, or all of us want to grow. Okay, I'll have yet to meet the person that doesn't want to grow, or that doesn't want to advance or progress in life or in his or her existence. So that is it, okay? That is the best way, okay, and the best advice that I can give up to this date on how to approach working out of a magical grimoire or an occult grimoire. These are things that you need to keep in mind, okay? And that is it in any case. Thanks for watching.